Okay, so I thought it was about time to put together another quick little tour of the Datashed. This time I'm going to start at the communications backboard here. So we've got this Cat5e patch panel here. That goes off to each of the wall outlets in this, or wall jacks in this room for Ethernet. You can see they go into this hole here. Also, we have some Ethernet cabling coming in from the main house. Also goes into the patch panel. We've got a this green wire here is a phone line connection for ADSL. Then the red wire that says phone 2 there is the T1 line. The UL1 and UL2 are uplinks into the house. They're pretty much only for backup purposes at this point. But we've also got down here the two main conduits. We've got some 25 pair cable, some 1.4 or 1.5, I forget. I forget the spec on this fiber bundle, this fiber trunk here. Got that from fiberstore.com. They are amazing. We've got a ground wire, goes out to the side of the building. There's a ground rod out there. There's a pull cord for the second conduit, which has nothing in it yet. The 25 pair cables, or the 25 pair cable, comes up to this 66 block here, and that the other end of that cable goes to a 66 block in the closet in the main house. So that's how I get analog and ISDN voice phone connectivity. The one next to it brings in, well, these are basically the connections from the NID on the back of the house. The T1 is in there, the two phone lines, and also the phone line coming off of the Comcast box. These are one of the phone lines. One of the trunks is a CenturyLink deal. It's just, you know, POTS analog stuff. And that on the other side of the 66 block goes out to PBX here. This is a Merlin Legend, and the two trunks come in over here on this 408 board. They're LS trunks, I believe. I always get LS and GS mixed up. We've got 4 MLX sets, well, 5 MLX sets coming off of this. There's a Merlin messaging board that I have not set up yet. Need to move it to the last slot and renumber everything. Let's see here. Underneath the PBX, there is this HP MDP. These are all just RS-232 serial ports for the HP 9000. Over to the right here, we have a station for the PBX. I can dial any room in the house from here. Here's the terminal for the HP 9000. And then some as yet unused power outlets on the ceiling. The back of the rack here. We have a token ring switch, thin net repeater, the AG switch for out-of-band management, which is not set up yet. Back of the dial-up modem for out-of-band management, which is also not set up. Back of the management laptop. And then this is the UPS. All that's really on here right now is the phone system, and all of the out-of-band management stuff will come in right there as well. And over here, next rack over, the back of the Sun boxes, first edge routers, some spare Merlin Legend PDX boards, the second edge router, the back of the PDUs here for this other rack, the back of the Cisco ASA, I guess that's really the front, but I like to keep the ports oriented towards the front, and the back of the Cisco Catalyst. So now from this point, I'm gonna move on to doing the racks. We're gonna start at the top of 1DCA.co1. That's TIA standard labeling scheme. I believe my blog has a detailed explanation of that. But 1DCA is basically, 1DCA.co1 is basically the first floor of Data Center A, and the CO1 is Cabinet 01. So from the top, we've got a patch panel here. These bring out the two fiber optic uplinks from the house. This coax cable here will be terminated soon. It's the cable internet. I want to move the Comcast modem out here, and that's what that will allow. This right here is a 32 port, a twisted pair based KVM switch. We've got a couple of, this is a Spark Station 20, this is a Spark Server 20. They're identical. There's really no difference. I mean, they both have graphics cards. They both have pretty much the same complement of hardware. I mean, graphics cards on the system board, not in any S-bus slot or anything. This box is a web server / shell server. It's got a mail server running on it. It's running Solaris 7. I use this a lot. It has the onboard Ethernet, which is just 10 base T, and then we've got quad fast Ethernet S-bus card in there. That gives us 400 meg ports, I do believe. And so it's multi-homed. It's on several VLANs at the same time. But this is a fantastic little box. Just love this thing. And believe it or not, this KVM switch has adapters that allow it to hook up to Sun video natively. So when we get to the console for this, you can get to the graphical login for this box. It's pretty cool. This is a digital equipment RRD40 SCSI CD-ROM drive. Not easy to find, really useful, because digital workstations, much like Sun workstations of the same era, need optical drives that can do 512 byte blocks, and that's not easy to find. The problem here is it takes a custom proprietary caddy to load disks into it. I have not been able to source one of those yet. So below the RRD40, we have the RT Edge 01, that's router Edge 01, the first edge router. The T1, which it says Telnet, but Telnet got got bought out by GTT, so it's really the GTT T1. Lands on this WIC card right here. WAN interface card, 1DSU, T1, V2. Shows up as a serial interface in the iOS configuration. A couple of gigabit Ethernet interfaces here. Goes off to the core switch. We'll get to that later though, and also the core router. Some cable management ducts. Here's the second edge router. It's also a Cisco 3845. Actually, I don't know if I mentioned that the first one was a 3845, but it is. Both of these are completely loaded up on maximum memory, dual power supplies for redundancy, and the largest compact flash media they can support. Because I have some pretty substantial ACLs that I need to redo, but so I need a good bit of storage on there, and they get backed up to a TFTP server elsewhere on the network. They likewise go off to the core router and the core switch. Then below that we have the Cisco, I think this is a 2600 series, 2611 maybe. This is the access router for the wireless ISP that I run called ChivaNet. Just provides wireless internet access to low-income families in the neighborhood. Very slow little box, but you know, I have very limited traffic that I allow through the WISP, and it's pretty much just for people wanting to use educational sites, stuff like that. It's heavily filtered. Just because I don't have the bandwidth to support a full ISP coming off of a T1, which is only 1.5 megabits per second. Good latency, but very poor throughput. And the DSL is only 3.5 megs down and 896K bit up. So it's not a lot of bandwidth coming into this facility here. We've got this PDU here. This one doesn't really get a lot of use. It's more for, you know, things like plugging in the labeler, junk like that. Because I've switched to these managed APC PDUs that have a web interface on them. I can hard power cycle anything I need to through here. It's got an Ethernet interface. And these are, you know, I won't say anything more about these. You'll see them in later parts of the tour, but you know, they're all the same. So below that we have Firewall Edge 01. Not really functioning as a firewall. All I'm using on this Cisco ASA box is the VPN functionality with AnyConnect. I use an OpenConnect client on Unix to connect to this from my office. Then we have the big mama jama, the Cisco 6506. This is a non-enterprise chassis. It does have the high-speed fan tray, so you can put good selection of boards in here. Right now I have a 48-port gigabit blade, 3 empty slots, and then 2 sub-32 supervisor blades. All of these cables here, these fiber optic cables, go off to the top of rack switches. These 2 Ethernet cables end up going to the copper ports on the switch in the house. The fiber ones, 2 of them also go to the switch in the house. but the other 3 go to 3 more racks that we'll get to later in the tour. They are lagged together, so this will be one switch, another switch, another switch, another switch, and they're in redundant mode. You can see that the bottom supervisor is the active supervisor right now. The connection to both ports always exists, no matter whether the supervisor is in standby or active mode. But if one fails over, because each of the supervisors has an uplink to each switch, if one fails, the other one will become the active, and you won't lose connectivity. You might lose some throughput. I have a single 3,000 watt 120 volt power supply on this thing. No redundancy there. Here's the HP 9000. It's a PA RISC box. Not functional right now. This power switch does not like to stay on, so I need to address that. And I need to install a SCSI-to-SD adapter in here, which I have, in order to get HPUX going. And it's HPUX 11.0. This HP 9000 used to be my home mail server and web server. So, moving on to the next rack here, we've got a Cisco 3920. This is a token ring switch. The only 2 connected ports, one goes off to the core router, which we'll get to in a moment, and one goes off to my NetWare box. A little bit of Novell goodness there. This is a thin net repeater. You saw the back of it before. Right now it's only connected to the HP 9000. I'm waiting on some AUI transceivers to hook this up to the rest of the network. Excuse me. This is the out-of-band management aggregation switch, or it will be in the future. Right now it only goes off to the core switch, I believe. I have out-of-band management on VLAN 5, and so this goes to a port that's set up to be in VLAN 5 on the core switch. But the out-of-band network is going to move to dedicated switches once I'm ready to do that, and this will be the aggregation point for that. So all of the out-of-band management switches from the other racks will connect into this, and then there will be a Raspberry Pi, not this one, this one's broken, either a Raspberry Pi or a mini PC of some kind on this shelf here, probably running OpenBSD, something really secure that I can get into through my Comcast cable internet connection through a VPN and through dial-up on this courier modem here. These things are wonderful. This is a Toshiba satellite, A135-S4527. It's running Windows Vista. I keep this around for managing the ASA box with ASDM, and also WinSPM for the PDX, managing the PDX. You know, I just need something with a sufficiently old Java capable browser and JVM and all that stuff in order to make all that work. Below that is the UPS for out-of-band management and also for the phone system. It's a smart UPS to an extent. Doesn't have Ethernet, but it has an option for that. Then we have a Cisco 7204 VXR here. This is the core router. Everything comes through this guy. Just a little side note, we're running OSPF in here, Open Shortest Path First, for our dynamic routing protocol. Switched from RIP v2 a couple of years ago, and this basically brings in all the different media types of this network together. We've got a token ring card in here that connects off to that 3920 at the top of the rack. The connections to the two edge routers come in here. This is an ATM interface. I don't have any ATM hardware right now. Looking to replace this with FDDI because I have an FDDI concentrator for the Alpha boxes. Just need cables and the interface for this to make that, to light that all up. Then this goes off to the that 2600, 2611, whatever it is for the WISP. And then this one here goes off to the core switch. So basically traffic comes in on the edge, goes down to the core, then goes into the core switch. So that's all, that was 1DCA.CO5, cabinet 5. It goes from 1 to 5 because I have 3 more racks in here, and this rack here came in later than those other 3, so, you know, what can you do? I didn't want to redo all my labeling just because I got a new rack. So, it is what it is. We'll give a little zoomed out view here. The 2 networking racks. Well, mostly networking. Got that HP 9000 and those sun boxes in there. So now, we'll go on to 1DCA.CO2, cabinet 2. These are mostly x86 boxing over here. And these blanking panels, there's a switch rear mounted on the other side of this. We'll get to that. This PDU is not used. I need a new plug for it. Then we've got our primary authoritative DNS server here on this machine. Of these DL360, these ProLiant DL360 G4s, this is the only one, Artemis, that is actually still in use. The other 2 have been decommissioned for a long time. Been trying to move off these. They were decent boxes at a time, but they're becoming really unreliable at this point. They drop fans, they drop CPUs, they drop video boards, everything. This is a compute node. It's a System X 3550M3. It's a compute node for the Open Nebula cluster. Another compute node. This is a 3550M1. 3650M3. This is my storage server running Open Indiana. It dropped a disk yesterday. I'm waiting on a replacement for that. Then we've got VM ESXi01. This massive thing runs a very old VMware, and all of my Windows networking infrastructure is virtualized on this box. Domain controllers, SQL Server, Exchange Server, all that stuff is here. More blanking panels. Then we've got this beautiful Sunfire T2000. It's a Spark-based, an UltraSpark T1 based machine. It does a lot of infrastructure work in the network. DHCP is on there. The main database server is on a zone on there. All that sort of thing. This is another, this is a KVM virtualization host running CentOS, I think. The mail server is on there, the primary mail server. Then another compute node for Open Nebula, and this ancient e-server here from IBM. is my FidoNet BBS. Then we have a PowerEdge 2950. This is a web server that got broken into not too long ago. And then we've got another massive UPS down here. It's pretty much close to being at load here. Using 2 kilowatts. Yeah, the power bill here, to borrow from one retro computing hobbyist website, whose name I don't remember, is somewhere between ouch and cringe. So now we'll move to cabinet 3. At the top, we've got a VT510 terminal here. Let's go ahead and pop that on. This is for all of the VMS physical VMS boxes. Open VMS VAX 7.3, so that's running on this VAX Station 4000 VLC. I really want a bigger VAX. It's a huge thing for me. I love VAXs. Probably my favorite machines. Alpha Server ds.lru. I do tons of work on this every single day. Love this box. A lot of mumps programming happens here. I have this FDDI concentrator that I mentioned before needs to be set up. And over here, we have a former Veterans Administration cluster. SCSI disk, tape jukebox, and the alpha processors themselves. One of these pieces of hardware somewhere in this rack let out the magic smoke yesterday. Still stinks in this room. Bunch of storage, kind of messy. And we've got the main station, the operator station for the PBX right here. You can program the whole thing from there. A workstation, that's just a little HP box. There's my old workhorse, the Ultra 10, named Yuna, after the Final Fantasy character. I do pretty much all the admin work for this facility from that box. Connected to these GDM 5410 monitors. This KDS monitor is the console for the KVM, the 32-port KVM switch. Some network cabling. There's a little 5-port switch back here that's getting replaced soon with a 16-port job because I'm running out of ports. There's a TV, smart TV hanging from the ceiling. There's a Raspberry Pi on the back of that. Hi, Bell Dandy. Management stuff, management monitoring stuff runs on that Raspberry Pi. There's Riku, some of my wall scroll collection. Yuna, another part of my wall scroll collection. Appropriate, because the machine that she watches over is also called Yuna. I'm a huge Final Fantasy X fan, what can I say? Over here, we have the backup AC. I say backup, but it's not nearly powerful enough to take over if the main AC fails. I could just shut down a bunch of stuff and run bare bones for a while, I guess. Sorry, I'm losing my voice from having to shout out here. This is the console for the NetWare box. Here's a DEC LA75. This is a 9-pin dot matrix printer. Serial interface on it. Connects off to that Alpha server, the blue one, the DS10L. Old iMac. Bell Dandy again. This was my stepdad's machine. That's a little Netgear 8-port hub. Bunch of decommissioned DL360s and a DL380, all G4. Parts storage. More bell dandy. Got the top of rack switch for this rack. Kind of a cable jungle back here. You can clean that all up. In the back of the rack for some of the Alpha and Vax equipment. And then back here, if I can get some light on the subject. In the back of the rack for the cluster that let out the magic smoke yesterday. In any event, let's see, what else am I missing? There's the air conditioning unit. It's 4 ton, I want to say. Barely keeps up with the load in here. Anyhow, that's been the tour, the updated tour of the Datashed. Please feel free to leave a constructive comment if you wish to do so. Thank you.